morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of 4 a.m. in Quarantine. I'm your host, Steve Rivera, and this one is going to be an amazing episode. Super excited for what we have for you here. I'm going to dive really deep into our current real estate market with the one and only Dean Rogers. Dean is a current real estate investor, former pro athlete, played for the San Diego Chargers, now known as the LA Chargers. So excited for him to tell a story on that end of things, how he kind of got from being that pro athlete, coming out of college, going into the NFL, and landing in real estate and becoming a veteran in the real estate space, and becoming that investor that people look up to. He's actually a partner of mine. We've partnered on a deal or two together, and excited for what the future holds for us. And yeah, man, I just want you to give a little bit of a background as to your story, prior to the real estate game. How did you get into real estate? What made you, what catapulted you into real estate from the NFL? Because I know a lot of guys struggle coming out of, pro sports and not really having something to land on. Was it a mentor of yours, or, what was it that really got you into real estate? And love to hear more about that. Appreciate you hopping on, man.
You bet. Thanks for having me, Steve. Happy to be here, man. Yeah, I mean, the first half of my life was everything sports. I'm 32 now, which would in NFL years be an old, decrepit veteran, barely hanging in there. But a lot of life to live in civilian life years, So, yeah, first half of my life was nothing but sports. As you mentioned, I grew up in Central California. That's where I was born and raised. And, I love sports just through and through. I love that competitive drive, and love just being able to work towards a certain goal and just the feeling of winning, working with teammates. And so, coming out of high school, I was kind of an under-recruited tailback. I played running back in high school. I was known locally, but probably wasn't a big name nationally, and got recruited by, handful of different schools, Notre Dame, Boise State, Fresno State, a lot of the West Coast, except for Notre Dame, Brown, and Louisiana Tech and Nevada. So there's a handful of different schools, and one that stood out to me the most was actually UC Davis. They're one that recruited me here in California, and not only were they, given scholarship money, but I just saw the big picture, not just football, not being just a football school, but also, highly regarded from an academic standpoint. And, I had above a 4.0 in high school, and graduated with 3.0 in college. And so I kind of had that big picture, long-term vision. But going into football in college was actually a bigger transition than going into the NFL, surprising enough. I feel like the speed from high school to college was so much more. Really took advantage of that redshirt year to kind of adapt and get used to it. But from there, it was just heads down. That's kind of who I am, is just I get in the trenches, just go to work. I've got that drive to win. So stayed really focused throughout college. I wasn't a partier. I didn't drink at all during high school. I didn't start casually having a drink or two, which for me, that's a lot in college till I was like a junior. And I didn't go out and party. I stayed focused on my schoolwork and stayed focused on, being as good of an athlete as I could be and be prepared for that. So that really set me up to excel. I became an All-American in college, was getting recruited by NFL teams starting my sophomore, junior year, and, saw that potential to make it to the NFL. So, interestingly enough, you could compare it to going in quarantine, but in 2011, when I went in, got signed by the Chargers, that's the year of the lockout. So they had the lockout where they had the draft, but as soon as the draft was done, everything went radio silent for like 6 months. And you could think of it like being in quarantine, but so all you could do was train during that time. You could talk to your agent, but you couldn't talk to any teams. You couldn't go train with whatever team, you were with. So it was like being in quarantine. And same thing, I just stayed focused, was training with other NFL players in Fresno. And as soon as the lockout lifted, got that call. I was just about to head to the mountains actually with my brother-in-law. My wife, she had gone out of town for a bachelor party. My parents were out of town on a trip, and was just about to go to no cell phone service in the mountains. And before I left, I got that phone call, and me and my brother-in-law, we were jumping around like little schoolgirls in the living room. Like, we were just so excited. So got that call, flew there first thing in the morning. And, my journey started with the Chargers. And, it was an amazing experience. It taught me that the discipline is even more important at that level. You got to be a true professional. And man, I learned right away that I could play at that level. Norv Turner was stopping me in the halls several times saying, "Hey, Dean, you're going to have a long career." And I was like, holy crap, like, all right, I made it. And so was playing great, but that same year was the year that like concussions broke the news. Like, they finally started talking about it on ESPN. And I had 2 in college. I had one with the Chargers, and it just got me thinking, that year Junior Seau killed himself that season. People were starting to talk about it a lot more. And to be honest, it made me change my mind. Like, if I'm going to be doing this for, 6, 7, 8 years, how am I going to feel, and how is my brain going to be after just all these collisions? And so I hung up my cleats. I retired at that point. And quickly transitioned. I actually didn't waste any time. As hard as that decision was for me, and my entire life up to that point was all about football. Coming out of that, I had a good buddy from college I played football with, and he called me. He's like, "Hey, what are you doing now?" And he said, "There's this tech company I work for in San Francisco. You should really check them out. I could get you an interview." So it had to have been just a couple months of me being done playing football that I got an interview, and he basically walked me into this company, big public company before they went public, and got me in. So that's how I got started in the professional world before I knew anything about it. Like, I had an idea of what it was to have a working job besides football, but it really, only thing I could compare it to is seeing my parents work, who had their own business, and, what you see on TV. So I'd show up, I'd be at my desk, and I was like, this is easy. Like, I'm not having to train or, run sprints for 4 hours throughout the day and then go to practice. Like, this is a cakewalk. So, it was easy for me, but it was kind of unfulfilling. When you have a corporate job, they tell you how much you can make. Like, this is all you're going to make, the end. Mm-hmm. Depending upon what kind of position you have, you could have a sales job and you could have, more potential. But I quickly realized, like, dude, if I want to have those dreams and aspirations that I got to not only dream about, but experience in the NFL and the stuff that you see around you, that kind of like first class lifestyle. I was like, I need to do something different. So I quickly got into real estate, and I got into it by just kind of like reflecting on what are the things that I like now. I was 24 years old, so there's only so many things that you like at that point. But I always liked real estate growing up, and knew that it had so many opportunities and potential for growth. So So I literally just went on Google and I typed in how to get started in real estate. And to your question, did I link onto a mentor or what did I do? I found a guy named Sean Terry who literally changed my life. And he had a podcast talking about how to get started in real estate with little to no money. A lot of things that you see that look fake online today. But he had a free podcast that went into detail, had over 100 episodes, into painstaking detail of exactly how he was doing it. So I just followed exactly what he was doing and took the steps that he was, explaining. And within 3 months of being obsessed, and when I say obsessed, I mean, I would listen to these podcasts during work, on the way to work, during work. I'd wake up at like 2 a.m. and listen to the same podcast I listened to earlier because I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I was trying to figure out how does that actually work? And so I became obsessed. And within 3 months of following exactly what he was doing, I got my first deal and got money in the bank. And I was like, okay, this works. So, and the strategy I was using was wholesaling. So I was finding a property from, a motivated seller and turning around and selling that to another investor who wanted to hold it for a rental or fix and flip it. And so, I started from there.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's long story short, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's a pretty amazing way for you to get started is just by listening to those podcasts. And now look at you now, you're giving back on our podcast. So it's pretty cool how it comes full circle.
100%.
Yeah. When you really think about it. Right. And now being that, everyone is in quarantine, and most people have a little bit extra time on their hands. It's just the nature of it right now. Is there any podcast, who was it? It was what was his name? Terry?
Sean Terry.
Sean Terry. Does he still have a podcast, and is he still in the real estate game, or?
He's very much in the real estate game. He's connected with a ton of other influential people in the real estate game. He's out of Phoenix, Arizona, as well as a lot of other kind of influential real estate investors that are putting content out there. So yeah, if you just Google Sean Terry right now, there's so much content that's, in the form of a podcast or a YouTube video. You should certainly check him out. He had a huge impact on my life for sure, and still does. He still puts out content, and I still pick up great nuggets from him.
Amazing. Yeah. And I think that, there's plenty of people right now that could definitely leverage that information, that value, take a little bit of time out of their day right now, which, again, I think a lot of people have more time on their hands. And now it's just about taking that time and funneling it in the right avenues. And I think over the next, 6, 8, 12 months, this is when the true entrepreneur and the true, go-getter is going to learn those skills that's going to truly change their life in a positive way. Right. And,
yeah.
That's what's going to set someone apart from someone who's, watching 4 or 5 hours worth of Netflix every single day.
Exactly.
Because it's super easy just to hop on your TV and just sit there and watch Netflix all day. Let's get real.
100%. Yeah, I think right now, Steve, there's the thing that's amazing about today in 2020 is there's just so much information out there.
Yep.
Just in general, not only educationally, education information, but there's also so much like junk you could just get lost in with all the TikToks and Instagram stories and Facebook. I mean, there's so much stuff you could get just lost in for hours and hours. So I think right now, again, just coming from a sports background, like almost from like a military standpoint, that's just been drilled into my head is like having a routine and having discipline, and holding yourself accountable. So I'm not going to proclaim to be an expert or anything in that regard, but I do find myself being as disciplined as possible to just push through, adversity. Being an entrepreneur can be hard. You got lots of ups and downs, and that's not just through the period of a, 5-year, 10-year journey. There could be lots of ups and downs just of one day, emotionally.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've seen those those pictures that show the life of an entrepreneur in one day, and they're like, oh, I'm amazing. Oh, I hate myself.
Yeah.
Oh, we're doing so great. And then what am I doing? So that can literally happen in one day. So I think not only the discipline, but, we could spend forever talking about the mindset. I think it's tough, especially right now. I don't think there's ever a point of history where we've been told and forced to do something, which is to stay inside your house, to not go anywhere, not to socialize with people. And we're social human beings. We like to explore. We like to see new things. We like to have fresh air on our face. So to not be allowed to do any of that is pretty mentally, exhausting and kind of a trip. So I think mindset right now, if you can focus on only the things you can control. We know what we can't control, which is, the outside environment. But what you can control is just being disciplined around things that are going to make you better right now and make you come out of this kind of ahead rather than taking 10 steps backwards. So I think exercise is at the top of that list to help, keep your blood flowing, keep your bodily functions working, right. And for those of you that don't work out, or those that do know that working out is like a natural drug. It helps my mental state better than anything else, any other like medicine or anything I could take. So encourage you to work out and exercise, and then just get some structure around some education throughout the day. Listen to some podcasts like this to help focus you, and then some other just things you can do in your business to tweak and pivot. I know there's a laundry list of things that I have on the board right now of things that we're doing to pivot to make sure that we're making the best use of our time. Where maybe there's less buyers out there. Okay, well, let's go find some more buyers, right? Maybe there's less sellers. Well, let's make better use and be better at our conversations and be more efficient so that we can make use of every lead that we have. So there's a ton of different things you can be doing to work on yourself and your business during this time.
Yeah. And I love when you talked about just pivoting, right? Because I think it's super important to understand, where we were, 3, 4, 5 weeks ago, where we are today, and kind of project where we're going to be in the next few weeks, and understanding how that's going to change your business and change the way that you're doing business right now. I know as an entrepreneur and fellow real estate investor myself, I know marketing and branding for my company is the lifeblood of the company, right? Just being able to put out content and to understand exactly who you're going to package your message, and you have to understand who you're portraying your message to. So what are you doing in terms of marketing to now navigate that switch and that pivot in which you're now taking for your business, and how is that affecting you?
Yeah, so take you back to dive into that question. So since I've been in real estate, I started out, as I mentioned earlier, doing wholesaling for about a year, and then for a handful of years was doing fix and flips only. And we were ramping that up to doing about 100 flips a year. We'd have 15, 20 flips going on at a time, and got pretty good at doing that. And then noticed and felt that the market was going to be shifting to be kind of towards the top of the market, or what it felt like at the time. So I wanted to get more into wholesaling. We're really good at finding deals. We're really good at marketing and finding those deals from directly from homeowners. And so we became good at finding then buyers to sell those to. So we got into wholesaling. And then at the beginning of 2018, also felt and realized, okay, I could be flipping houses, till the day I die. But if I want to end up stopping at some point and still have money coming in, I need passive income. So we started picking up rentals. Since the beginning of 2018 to today, we've got 52 doors that we have. And so, so we've got that going on in the wholesaling part of the business. So for marketing, it's all about making direct contact with homeowners, or what it's become even more of is networking with other people who are finding deals directly from homeowners. So we've become even better at doing that. So our messaging that we're pivoting just to get specific on what can you do today to pivot, instead of just saying the, hey, we buy houses cash type of messaging that most people are sending out. We're transitioning to saying that we're buying houses virtually, and we're getting very clear in our message of how that works. Hey, step one, give us a call. Step two, we're going to get pictures from you. And that could be through you just sending it to us, or we do a virtual walk through the house. Step three, we're going to give you an offer and figure out a price that sounds fair to both of us. And then we're very intentional on our conversations when we're on the phone with them to just talk through everything that's going on in the world and try to figure out what their needs are and what kind of things do we need to work together on to make this deal work for everybody. Because some sellers might need some more time to move. They might have tenants in the property, and that's now potentially an issue. And then on the other side, because we see both sides of the transaction now being in the middle, the buyer is now more specific about the price that they buy it at. They're being more conservative. And then they also, in most cases, don't want tenants in there, depending upon the situation and the price. So there's a handful of different factors you got to work around. And so we're being transparent with the sellers and just putting everything out there and saying, let's work together, So that's exactly what we're doing right now. And then, some other things you can do to get pretty niche. I think there's a lot of people just on their phones today. So that could be Facebook ads that you're doing. It could be Facebook group posts that you're doing. There's a lot of buy, sell, and trade groups out there for whatever city or county that you're in. You can get in there and just look what people are posting, or you can drop messages in there directly to get people's attention. And then same goes for like finding buyers. There could be buyers in those groups, or just your local real estate investor groups out there to find buyers, right? So I think there's a lot of small tweaks people can make to make sure they're maximizing every opportunity that they have right now.
Yeah, and I think a lot of those local RIA groups, a lot of those local networking groups are now, they're forced to hop online. They're forced to now do everything virtually over this next few weeks. So, take advantage of that. I know that, I run a group myself, and, we're not stopping those meetings. We're doing everything, on a video conference, where it's interactive. Everyone can actually act. We do a little happy hour at every meeting.
Nice.
So, yeah. So, you gotta make the best of it, and, creating those little, nuances that, get people excited, little happy hour, a little, last meeting we brought in, Gene Trowbridge, who is a huge syndication attorney. So people love that. It's just about providing a ton of value, right? And if you want to get a lot of value, you got to figure out a way to provide value before you take that value and expect people to just kind of give you value. And I think that's key during these times, is understanding that, you have something to give. You just have to find exactly what that is, whether it's just your time, you're new in this, you don't really have much knowledge, you don't really have much background. just give your time, do what you can, grow your personal brand, online and offline. And, when this thing's all over, you'll be hell of surprised where you're at in 3 months. Right. I mean, like when, you were talking about it earlier, you were literally eating, breathing, sleeping real estate. And, you'd wake up at 2 a.m. just to listen to the rest of a podcast or re-listen, to a podcast that you had already listened to because, you found something that you were truly interested about and something that resonated with you. Right. And finding that passion, finding that something that's really going to give you that burning feeling inside it's everything.
Yeah, 100%. I think, to challenge anybody who's maybe just getting started or trying to figure out what to do right now, I think you just go all in. And the biggest thing that you're going to have to get focused on is the shiny object syndrome, because there's a million and one things you can do to make money in this world. And there's a million things you can do to make money just in real estate. So I think if you're just getting started or you're needing to pivot in your business right now, you spend a little bit of time up front figuring out what it is that you feel you would have the most passion and excitement around. That could be fix and flips. It could be wholesaling. It could be passive income. It could be, multifamily. It could be, private lending. It could be, syndication, like you mentioned. I mean, there's so many things you can do in real estate. So find out what it is, and then find someone who's an educator in that space, and go all in and see it through. The worst thing you could do is, spend 3 days learning a little bit about something, and then just, you move on to the next thing to learn about another, and not really seeing it through. I spent 3 months, just eating it, just consuming as much as I could from that one person. It wasn't like and I could have easily, he talked about how to do a contract. Let me go Google and YouTube, like all these different contracts. No, I wanted to focus and just follow in a linear path exactly what this person was teaching me and how they were teaching it. And so I saw that through with Sean Terry's podcast, and that kept me focused to get that deal done in 3 months rather than taking a year to do it, because I kept chasing my tail, in all these different paths that I could have gone. So that's the one thing I would challenge you to do right now to get ahead and stay focused.
Yeah. And I love that. Just staying focused and staying that linear path, because like you said, like there are so many things tapping you on the shoulders at all times, just with how much access to knowledge and information we have. It's just like, your phone's going off, you're keeping these notifications on and a million different things pulling you in a million different directions, and learning to stay focused is everything. It truly is. And I mean, you hit it right on the head right there. So just want to kind of pivot and, get to what everyone's waiting for, and that's the market. How is it impacting your business? And, what are you seeing your sellers doing? What are you seeing, your potential buyers doing in this, current market climate? And, give everyone a little bit about what your local market looks like. And then I'll kind of give a little bit of what's going on the East Coast as well.
Yeah, 100%. So this is definitely the hot topic right now. Everybody wants to lean in and listen to what are people saying, how do they feel about it. And some of this stuff is day to day, and some of it's week to week, month to month. So I think it's an important topic to stay clued in on. So what's going on now, and, I'll pull up my phone and look at it. You can see the stock market is like, your bipolar cousin who's all over the map. Today they're up and they're hot. I mean, the stock market is based on the majority. There's Wall Street, who controls a big chunk of it. And then the rest of it is how the American people feel, just how they feel. It's their feelings. Do I bet on this, or do I take my money out, right? And so you can see from a day-by-day basis, people putting money in, and the Dow Jones going up 1,000 points, which is a huge jump, to dropping 1,000 points the next day. I mean, that's insane. But these times that we're in are insane. So I think that real estate is only being affected right now based on two factors. The first is fear, right? Sellers and buyers are both being impacted by fear. So we'll dive into that more. And then the other aspect is just the limitation from accessibility. And some of that, again, is still by fear. Real estate just got named as an essential business. So that helped lift some of the restrictions that we had from realtors showing properties and so on and so forth. But, let's dive into the details here. So when we're looking at our market in Central California, what we're seeing from the seller standpoint is two things. We either have the now more motivated seller who's calling us back where they weren't really too sure a month ago or the month before that, or even a year back. Now they're a little bit more motivated, and hey, let's talk about, the price again. Let's see if we can figure this out. You've got the same seller who is seemingly not in the news and has no awareness, and they still want full retail price. They want you to overpay for the house, and they're going to get a rude awakening if they truly do need to sell that house in the near future. And then you've got the seller that says, let's just let this blow over and see what happens. I've got a handful of hot leads that we categorize them as that want to sell. We're basically in agreement on a price. However, they just want to let things blow over for the next couple months till things more or less go back to normal. So that's kind of seller sentiment right now. There's more people at home, but yet I feel like there still is in some cases less people selling, right? So there's that going on. And now on the buyer side of the market, I've seen that in talking with it, there's less people that are buying, and that's for a number of different reasons. Let's say the normal investor who's a fix and flip investor, they may be scared, or their flips that they currently have in progress, they're just focusing on those and trying to get them done as quick as possible, trying to sell them as quick as possible. So they don't want to introduce any more potential risk in buying, not really knowing what in the world's going to happen, a month from now. So there's that. And then the buyers who are seasoned investors, they've been through the previous crash, or they're maybe an institutional hedge fund that we're working with. They're still buying, but they're being more conservative on their retail price that they believe they're going to sell it for. Their after repair value, ARV, they're backing out, 10%, 15% off of that price. So for us, let's say an average house sells for, let's say, $200,000, all fixed up. They're now looking at selling that house for $180,000. They're being conservative. So those are the conversations we're having with sellers. Those are the conversations we're having with buyers. Now, in a big picture, like what's going on in the market that I'm hearing and feels like I'm experiencing. Now, I didn't live through the last crash as a real estate investor. I was in college still, so I didn't get to experience firsthand. But I've got all, my partner, he lived through that and has got a million stories. And then a bunch of my buddies around me lived through that and have the experience and have shared. So from a big picture, I would say what I'm hearing is that this that I'll call this is the pandemic. The pandemic that we have going on is a unique experience, but it's going to cause a recession and several different things because businesses are being impacted, the economy is being impacted. But what I'm hearing, and I agree with, is that it's being truncated down, being compacted down into a short period of time. The 2008 financial crisis was a financial crisis. It wasn't like a 2011 a 9/11, national kind of crisis, black swan event that was kind of a freak thing like this pandemic where the economy was affected, people were fearful. This, the 2008 financial crisis was due to actual, a financial crisis and bad economical practices from the banks that had to then, be bailed out. We know the whole story. So because our economy in theory is still strong and good, and we're being impacted for the short period of time, the theory, which I agree with, is there's going to be a pent-up demand. So while there's going to be businesses that do not survive, there's going to be some people that remain not having jobs coming out of this. The overwhelming majority of the economy and American people are going to have some money or enough money to want to just get back out there and live their life. I'm hearing people say, man, if there's ever been a time that I've wanted to take a trip and go on vacation, as soon as I'm allowed to get out of my house and do whatever I want, I'm going on vacation. There's people saying, I haven't been able to eat out for 2 months. I'm going to eat at a restaurant for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
I'm hearing stuff like that. So the thought that I'm hearing and agree with is that this impact that we're going to have on the economy, the real estate market specifically, is going to be truncated down. Coming out of it, when everything's lifted and we're fine, it should go back to normal. It should be stable. And then, that's looking at the kind of buying and selling side. Now, from another thing that you and I are very interested in is the rental, real estate market, whether it's multifamily or single family homes or anywhere in between. What I'm hearing and experiencing is, out of our 52 units that we have, 42 of them have paid, meaning 10 of them haven't. Mm-hmm. And they could have their check in the mail now that it's, a week from the first of the month, or they just haven't called to make a payment plan yet, right? So there are people that have been impacted, but it's not like half of the people didn't pay. It's not like all of them didn't pay. We're talking, in my case, 20% of the people haven't paid yet. And another person I was listening to on a podcast yesterday who manages 22,000 rentals, his clients, out of all his clients, he's collected 83% of the rent. Wow. Out of 22,000 people. 83% of the rent, whereas normally by this time, as of yesterday, he says, I've collected maybe 86, 87% of the rent, and for the entire month, maybe I'm in the low 90s. So he never collects 100% of the rent for this reason or another, but he's only a few percentage points off of where he is average. So we're seeing kind of the same, and so the big concern was the first of the month, are we going to get paid? And so far, we're fine.
Yeah. And I think that, a lot of those tenants are either, thank God for technology, right? Able to work from home, or, mm-hmm. They're potentially experiencing, whether they were laid off or they were furloughed. I think a lot of these employees are having confidence that their job is still there when on the other end of this thing, right? And yeah. I think that confidence draws now, your will to, you're more willing to make that payment because you think this is going to be over in the next few months. You'll have your job back in the next few months. Whereas, if you were laid off and there wasn't that confidence, I think that 83% number would probably drop another 25, 30%. And we'd be somewhere around the 50%. I think that's somewhere where we would be.
Yeah, I agree. I heard someone say the other day in kind of a joking fashion, but being, realistic, people are going to buy food first,
Yeah.
right? They're going to pay their Netflix subscription next, and then they're going to pay their rent. So I think that the overwhelming majority of people are still having rent as their top three things they're going to pay. They want to have a place to live. They have some sort of pride in where they live and most likely enjoy where they live. So they don't want to mess that up, especially with these uncertain times. So I think there's some sort of, confidence in that's going to be stable and good. Of course, the economy has to, and the government has to be able to support folks that have been laid off if they're telling them they can't work and telling their employers that they can't have their businesses open. So it's funky times, but I think today, right now, there's some confidence in the rental aspect of it. There's some confidence in the buying and selling aspect of it, with some adjustments for the time being, because there is, some unknown as it stands right now.
Yeah, totally. And, we've adjusted, we've pivoted ourselves, and, we've made sure that we were liquid for times like this, right? So we're able to, if we're taking a hit on one or two of our rentals, we know that we're going to be able to make up for it with the opportunities that are going to come across our desk, if you will, over the next 6-12 months. So we're extremely confident that, whether it's getting a bigger and better deal on the other end of this, I think that either way it's going to balance itself out. And if not, we're going to be in a much better place on the other end of things. And I'm excited for it myself. I'm sure you are, as an entrepreneur and as an investor yourself. Changes like this and, little dips in the market that build this fear are, amazing opportunities for someone like myself and of course you, who are educated enough and who take the right steps and pivot and understand, what exactly we're looking at in a bigger picture, right?
Yeah, 100%. I think the interesting thing that is still yet to be seen or played out. Now, history shows that when there's, some sort of a recession or some sort of economic impact like we're having now, that there will be opportunity. The big question mark, and as the words are coming out of my mouth, I still am on the fence to understand where it's going to be. I don't know if we're going to come out on the other side of this, and let's say the business owner who just got crushed wasn't able to get the right support, or even though they got support, their business was still so impacted they couldn't recover. Those business owners who are likely then also real estate owners, for us being in real estate, who are also real estate owners, now need to liquidate those assets to recover and be able to, survive and be okay. So that could be a potential scenario, regardless of what side of the fence you're on, of how the economy is going to, recover and how fast. That could be a very likely scenario that if your eyes are open and you're in the game playing, that those opportunities just start happening. And we're just a month into this, so we're just barely starting to feel the effects. The American people are just barely starting to be impacted with their businesses closing doors. So there's that. There's of course, so that's kind of like in the middle, regardless of what happens, likely outcome. But I'm still on the fence of is there going to be just like a buying frenzy, blood in the streets? There's tons of opportunity, like the last market crash. You look at, I hear lots of stories in Central California. Let's say a house was selling in 2008 for $300,000. People were buying that house for $100,000 in 2010 and 11. I mean, that's a massive, massive decline in prices. Now, I don't think that's going to happen because 2008 was just so bonkers with the way prices were skyrocketing and the loans that were on those properties and then people foreclosing. We're not in that situation, but there will most likely be more foreclosures. There will most likely be businesses going out of business. So there should be more opportunity. And so, yeah, I'm on the fence. I don't know, is it just going to be crazy buying opportunity, or the market, like I said before, the economy is pretty stable financially leading up to this, and people are just not being able to do their business as usual. So when we're allowed to, we should have that pent-up demand. We should be jumping right back into it and have a stable market. And so if it is stable, is there maybe not those huge discount opportunities, and it's just opportunities as usual? So I can't quite tell. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think once we have an idea of when, travel and the hospitality industry could kind of jump back into doing their thing, is going to be a huge, huge spark to both the economy and for real estate, right? Because you have your short-term rental owners, which is ourselves on the Airbnb, VRBO side of things, right? And we're being affected, and we actually just got a notice yesterday that our one of our Airbnb locations locally, we are no longer allowed to rent our place, right? So right there and then that shuts down everything right off the bat. Not sure. I also think this is very, very short term, but once that is all able to, like you said before, everyone, all this pent up excitement and trips that were canceled over the past, month or two is now going to, cause a huge influx of travel, right? And I think that's really going to spark, the economy and everything that's going on right now. But as for the market and if in fact we're going to see more foreclosures, absolutely. Again, but just kind of talking about what you said, right? Whether or not we're going to see a huge drop, in or increase in foreclosures, short sales, and things of that nature. I don't think it's going to be too crazy. Just because, again, I think there's a lot of confidence in people getting their jobs back and businesses being able to make it through this. But again, I think it all depends on where your business was prior to this, and how much support you're able to go out and get. And it's all about being proactive. A lot of these business owners, if they're proactive and they seek out the right support, I think the right support is there right now. It's just the fact that it's not going to be, everyone's not going to have access to it, right? So you have to go out there, find that support, help yourself, be able to weather this storm until we get out on the other side. But I think, like you said, I think the pent up demand is going to be huge for these restaurants, these retail, shopping centers that have seen a huge, huge hit over the past, 2 months. I think that's going to really that increase in demand is really going to help them and spark that business again as well. Although there's going to be a lot of opportunity in the retail side of things, and we could talk about this for another day or so. But I'm excited for that opportunity, and again, like you said, in the multifamily world as well, because at the end of the day, the fear is going to cause people to sell, right? It's the bottom line, and if you're on the other side of that and you're able to conservatively make that investment, as a buyer and as an investor on the other side, I think that there's going to be a ton of opportunity for guys like you and me to take advantage of. So I'm excited for it.
100%. Yeah.
And just wanted to kind of change gears here again real quick. And I know you're a huge family guy.
Yeah.
And I know you love your two kids, your two boys, and your wife. But how has it been during the quarantine? Has the house been a like an Adventureland? Has it been a Six Flags over there, or what's going on?
Yeah. We're just lucky that, the whole family hasn't barged through the door yet. I told the wife before I came into this, I said, can you do your best just to keep it quiet and keep them out? She's like, I can try, but,
That's all I can do,
we'll
though.
see. They could have a guest appearance here any second, but, yeah, I mean, I've been working at homes for, I don't know, past 6 years of my life. Everything I do is completely virtual. So I'm used to this environment.
Mm-hmm.
It's not different for me. The only thing different, of course, is the being able to go out to restaurants or jumping on a plane to go travel or, going to my favorite. I mean, the beaches are closed here in La Jolla. I mean, we can't even go to the beaches,
Wow.
which is it just feels so wrong.
Yeah.
Like you tell me I can't go touch the sand. Like what? This is crazy.
Yeah.
So I'm used to this environment. The kids are definitely going a little stir crazy, not being able to do the normal things. My oldest is 4 right now. So everything, his mind is just so curious. He's asking about everything. So, we're going on a walk. Oh, can we go to the park? We can't go to the park right now, babe. I'm sorry. Well, why? Oh, it's closed. Why? It's hard to kind of explain some of these things to your kids right now because they don't quite understand it. The wife is definitely going absolutely nuts, stir crazy. Moments of feeling happy, moments of breaking down, just crying in the middle of the day. But she's much more in her feelings than I am. I'm very much more of like a structured person. Maybe guys are naturally just wired a little bit differently. But it's hard. For the first time, actually yesterday, I was actually starting to feel it a little bit myself. Starting to feel like, man, this is kind of tough, and was affecting a little bit of my mindset. But that's going to be the case for I think a lot of people. And so you got to kind of get creative. You got to remind yourself that this is temporary. Not to like make too much of a dramatic contrast, but it's like, well, my grandparents, they grew up in England. My granddad and my grandma grew up in England. My grandma, she actually just passed last year. My granddad's still alive, just over 90. At 12 years old, they were getting bombed by the Germans. They had to go flee to bunkers. Like it could be worse quarantine for us. I'm in La Jolla in my house, chilling with my family. We've got plenty of food and things to do. We can go on walks. No one's bombing us. Like it could be worse, right? So not to be like too dramatic as a like contrasting thing. It's still normal and okay to feel not okay about all of this. But yeah, I kind of gone off on a tangent, but I think we're trying our best to get through it. You got to remind yourself like, hey, it's going to be okay. We can get through this. Try to find fun things to do and make time of having extra time with your family,
Yeah, and I love that, man. I love that you kind of brought perspective into it because, at the end of the day, it's so key to understand, where we're at in the times and the fact that it is only something that's not, that's not going to be long term, right? You got to remind yourself that it is temporary and that, we will get back to normalcy in the near future and being able to go out to dinner and do the things that, that make people happy. But bringing that perspective in and being able to spend more time with the family, do the things on your to-do list that have been sitting there for the past, 6 months potentially, and banging those things out. As long as you're taking your time and using your most important asset, which is your time, to your advantage at this point, I think it's only able to help you and become a little more structured, become a little more organized, and now propel you into the future. And, you know, on the other side of this thing, I mean, if you're doing the work now, it's really gonna speak volumes when this is all over, right? And you know, I'm excited to be able to, you know, see my friends, see more of my family, nieces,
Yeah.
nephews, and be able to travel again. But you know, I think that I'm using this time right now to create more opportunity, to dive more headfirst into the things that I've wanted to learn, you know, but I just haven't had, you know, the necessarily the time to get down to those things. So learning more and creating as much as I possibly can right now. I see you doing the same, man. And again, it was a pleasure to have you on today. Always a pleasure speaking with you, picking your brain, and you know, understand what's going on the West Coast while you know, we're on the East Coast. You know, I truly, really, I'm grateful for, you know, your friendship and everything that you're able to bring onto the show today. And you know, people are going to get a ton of value out of this. I'm excited for everyone to listen to it. And thanks again, man. I appreciate you.
You bet, man. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, brother. And we got to talk soon. Hopefully get another deal or two together and take
Yeah,
advantage of some of this opportunity.
absolutely. There will be opportunity.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dean. Appreciate it, man.
You bet.